as distinguishing dirhams and taking the false out of it, and comes in the sense of examining something and exposing its flaws. In the convention, criticism is integrated scrutiny of literary work once it is finished. The literary text is properly appreciated and reveals its quality and poorness, shows its degree and value, and then judges it by certain criteria, and categorizes it with those who like it. Criticism differs by its standards and provisions by the difference in the art in which criticism is practiced. Criticism directed at writers and critics is different from that of jurists, and criticism of fundamentalists is different from that of modernists. Each has its own style and provisions, but the common one among them is to consider the literary effect and analyze it in substance and form. It is worth noting that there is a vocabulary close to criticism, such as evaluation, responses, debates, controversy, and discussion, but each term is something to distinguish from. For others in terms of methods, judgments, and ends. The difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. Scholars have divided criticism into constructive criticism, in which the critic seeks to correct the error and tries to fix it on scientific grounds, away from intolerance and prejudices. He criticized Haddam, in which criticism is made to undermine others, discredit them, and monitor them by showing their mistakes without argument or proof. This shows that the critic of constructive criticism offers specialized criticism based on scientific methods in his field of specialization, while the critic of destructive criticism is unfairly criticized, and may be based on the hurt of people, because of his intolerance of an idea, and may be in the field of his studies. Constructive criticism is also the primary goal of correcting the situation, so the critic seeks to advise people, or hint at them without hurting them, while the critic's goal in destructive criticism is victory, regardless of whether he is right or not, where the critic here revenges and exposes others. On the other hand, the critic of constructive criticism believes that his opinion may be taken or rejected, but the critic in destructive criticism believes that his opinion is the absolute and irreversible truth. While the third difference is the critic's welcome to all opinions put forward in constructive criticism is clear. From one idea to another, he accepts other positive ideas from the same person he criticized, while in destructive criticism, the critic rejects all ideas from the person who criticized him, even if they are important. Stages of the cash process. Cash is subject to a set of necessary procedures and steps, and it is in 3 stages. 1. Interpretation phase. At this stage, the content of the text and the general meaning that the author wanted to convey to readers are clarified. 2. Analysis phase. The literature's method of expressing his thoughts and emotions is explained. 3. Calendar phase. The final stage of the monetary process, which means judging the literary work either by its success or by its failure. Cash curriculum. The critical approach is 2 concepts. One is general, linked to the nature of critical thought founded by Descartes. The critical curriculum is divided into 2 systems, the historical system and the modernist system. Historical system. Historical approach. It is one of the first critical approaches of the modern era, because of its close association with the development of human thought and its transition from the Middle Ages to the modern era. This led to the emergence of historical awareness, which was the cause of the emergence of Romantic schools, and their transition from Europe to other cultures. Romance represented the historical consciousness of man, linking it to his social reality after ideas prevailed that the present was nothing but deterioration and collapse. Marxist philosophy, which played a major role in the historical development of literature, then emerged by examining the literary process in 2 axes: the temporal axis, the spatial axis, and its spatial axis, and viewed it as a single integrated document. Other more flexible approaches emerged from the Marxist approach, giving more freedom to the individual, the creator, and the critic, which was the approach of critical realism, to adopt societal issues without the obligation of anyone Tin and Lanson are among the most prominent people who have contributed to shaping the historical approach to literary criticism. Tin found that literature is interpreted through several elements: sex or race, which characterizes a group of people with one origin, and the environment, the geographical environment in which the creator is born, and time, which has an impact on literature. While noting the significant impact that Lanson has had on Arab criticism, he has worked on the basic lines and crystallized them in the historical approach to literary criticism. Social approach. The social curriculum emerged from the history curriculum and took away its basics, and it is worth noting that historical awareness has quickly become a social consciousness, to which literature is associated, represents life at the collective level, and interacts with the systems and transformations of society. One of the most prominent doctrines adopting the critical social doctrine is Marxism and Western realism, where they have worked side by side to promote social criticism. Anthropological psychological approach. The psychological approach began to apply the mechanism of its work in conjunction with the emergence of Freud's theory of psychoanalysis, where he studied the phenomena of creativity in literature in the light of human behavior by returning to the region of the unconscious, a set of stored and invisible desires of the human personality, which may be dreamed by a man during his sleep. Considering that the interpretation of dreams is the basis for expressing the creative personality of poetry, music, and art, Freud resorted to linking the literary text to the area of the unconscious and the zoner, and considered literary figures real characters expressing real desires repressed. It is a psychological structure stored in the creator's unconscious area, and appears on the surface of the literary text. Modernist system. Structural approach. An approach that had an impact in the first half of the 20th century, and one of its most famous founders is the linguistic world B. Saussure, which distinguished between speech considered individual work and language, which is a mental and reference model of speech. The most important source of the structural approach is the movement of Russian formalists,